She's trying to go down and get juice.
She ain't looking for juice. She's looking for milk. Had a really, really good day today. Went to church this morning. Get my shoes on here. Put them back on. I just ran in real quick. Now I got to put them back on. And then we had the boys' birthday party today at Longhorn Lester's. It was really, really nice. Had a really good time. Really good food. Lots of games. I have to say I did really good at the first part of the game. But then the second part of the game, I was out quick. So I bragged too fast. Anyway, we had a good time. It was a really, really good time. All right. Give me 1 second. So I just got through giving Molly her bottles. And Bay and Elora are brushing her and loving on her.
She's trying to go down and get juice.
She ain't looking for juice. She's looking for milk.
I know.
I told them that when we love her and we give her her milk bottles, that we have to rub all over her, rub under her belly. That way she'll get used to. I told Elora, I said, what would happen if we walked out in the middle of the field to one of the cows and just started trying to milk her? She would have a freak out. I said, but if we love on her while she's little and rub her belly and rub her legs, then she'll never care if we're going to milk her.
You need some time? I don't want you to grab my fingers. You want?
All right, I think she's like ready for y'all to say, leave me alone. So now that the girls have fed Molly tonight, I gave her a good brushing. I've already fed the goats. I'm waiting for our baby girl to be done so I can go open her gate. Remember, I lock her in at night, so not all night, but while she's eating. So they won't, none of them come in there to try to mess with her. The little ones have been fed. The medium-sized ones have been fed. The big ones have been fed. And I gathered some eggs. I don't know who laid this poor egg, but that poor baby had a hard time. That's like somebody giving birth to a 10-pound baby. That's what I think when I seen that big egg. Praise God, all my babies, all of them, including Levi. Buddy was the smallest. Buddy was my first. Y'all all know that. He's my oldest. He was only 5 pounds and 7 ounces. Tony was normal 7 something, but Levi was 7 something. But I know that there are people that have had 10-pound babies. To me, that's since I've had little babies, fairly small babies, when they're 10 pounds, I feel like they're already a couple of months old babies. To me, that's rough. And I feel for anybody that has a 10 pound. So when I seen that big old egg, I was thinking, oh my gosh, she just laid a 10-pound baby. All right, let me let her out. Come on. Oh. All right, guys. It's bedtime. Frodo, you're getting every little last bite, huh, baby? Nobody's going to mess with you, Frodo. Everybody's pretty much done. I hear a cat whining. Oh, it's that wild gray cat. All right, I'm going to head in. It's a nice, quiet, still night. No wind. Okay. Mary. Oh. She just... Y'all better settle down out here. Like bullies. Mary came up on the side. I tried to push her away so she wouldn't do it again. She came up on the side of baby girl and tried to get her away. But baby girl ran into my leg. That's what I told Dad. I said, sometimes my worst fear is that they're at the height Bilbo's bigger. And the truth is, Mary and Pippin and Gimli and then baby girl, they will all be big goats. Frodo's the only one that's going to stay small. The other ones are getting bigger, but they're still, and Frodo too, the little ones and Frodo, the young ones and Frodo, let me say that, the young ones and Frodo are at that, sort of at that height that they're just light, just right back there, right above your knee where it bends. One of them is doing more of a whistle. You see that? Okay. Anyway, I feel like they're gonna sometimes come up behind me. It's gonna knock me backwards. Like my knee's gonna go out from underneath me. And that's the worst, when they start that fighting with each other. Stop that! Leave her alone. I've got to. I'm going to start on that. I know I say I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, but tomorrow I start on the duck house. Tomorrow is the duck house beginning. I've also put word into somebody that was selling one of those little, I know lots of people say bad things about those little houses you can get at Tractor Supply. And I don't think they're not built to be forever homes. I mean, they're not going to last more than a couple of years if they're in full element. That's why I said that one. Now, that one finally did dilapidate. But it had sat a couple of years in the dirt before I ever moved it over. I think I already talked about that one time. I built that little side roof where the little brooder is now, where the two sets of chickens are, the babies and the meat, and the young ones and the babies. When I first got that, when I went out and drug that little house out of the yard over there beside the camper, and I had the run put away because all I had sitting out under, it was Buddy's original. He bought it for Steph. And it was just a little red, looked like a little red schoolhouse or something. You know, it's like that kind of just little 4 square. It was like 2 by 2 with a little roof. I had that little pitched roof where all sides pitched all the way around. Anyway, it was a really cute little house, but it sat out in their yard for a while. It was made for only a couple of chickens, and it didn't, wasn't what she really needed. And then it kept sitting there, and I think I've already talked about it. At one time, it was sitting on the ground behind the old well house, and a couple of chickens had started laying eggs in it because I didn't close it. And then one night I come out, heard all kinds of racket, and there was one. By the time I got out, he had killed it. A possum had gotten a chicken inside it and was basically eating it by the time I got there. Anyway, I cleaned up a little section at the end of the camp. I've already talked about this, the camper. Some of y'all maybe didn't hear this story. But at the end of the camper, it was sort of, wasn't a really pretty place. There was 4 or 5 of them satellites, the poles sticking up with the big disc on the end. And so I wanted to dress it up and make it not look so bad. And I had a little tallow tree coming up beside it. And it was on the back side. The tree actually came up on the back side of the disc. So there was really no reason to pull it out of the ground, because it would not interfere with what they're picking. Well, it would have had to gotten really big to have hung over and interfered with anything. And anyway, I left that little tree growing, and I thought, well, you know what? That little red house would look really cute. Let's see them guineas underneath that little tree with those, and it might. So I put some landscape timbers out there, made a big square 8 by 8 all the way around, filled it with red mulch, and set that little house in it. And because Steph didn't need it, I didn't need it. I really wasn't thinking about using it as a brooder, because I'd always used it. I don't know what I'd used at different times, but different things for different brooders. At different times I use a different, things for brooders. So then I got to thinking that would make a perfect little brooder. So I took some 4x4s and put a cleat against the wall of, this was before the brooder was on the side of the chicken house. I put a 4x4 on the side, a 2x4 on the side of the chicken house as a cleat. And then I put 2 legs out here, and I just screwed a piece of plywood down into them. The plywood was 2 foot by 4 foot. So that house sat perfectly on it. and the run attached. I went and got the run and I attached it. And I used that. I put a little light down through the roof, went in from the side, and then hung it up so it still closed good and wouldn't let any weather in. And that sat out there like that for a long time. Still in the weather, but not in the ground. It was still getting rained on, but it wasn't in the dirt. And then when the chicks got old enough to come out into the run, I just covered the top with a little piece of a tarp, the run part. So if they did come out, because they were getting big and they needed more room to run, and it was basically, that's exactly what size it was. It was, the little house was 2 by 2 and the run was, maybe it was 2 by 5 because the run was a little longer than the house itself. Anyway, it made a perfect little brooder, but it sat out there for probably about 5 years before it finally started, you know, things were not, the roof needed to be replaced. It was finally starting to give. And that's when I took it down and I just built that little lean-to brooder house on the side. I put a floor in it. The roof is on it. It's wrapped in wire. The back side is wood. And built the little front door that I opened, you know, and then I had it just as the bottom at first. And then later I got some chicks that weren't, in fact, I was hatching chicks for somebody, and that memory just came up on my Facebook the other day, where I had just hatched out babies for somebody, and she wasn't ready for them. And so I knew I was going to have to keep them for 2 or 3 days, or maybe longer. I didn't know. And I had baby chicks already out there in the bottom. So that's when I added, I believe that's when I added that second layer. I pushed all the chicks back to the corner and put a piece of wire so they would stay back away from me. Right, because I could actually stand in that. Before I put that second story, I could stand in it. So then I went in there and put a cleat down one side and a cleat down the other and laid a piece of plywood in there, and it gave me a second story. And then that's where I put her babies at until she was ready for them. Anyway, everything's done out here. And I've got, well, that's what I was saying. I'm going to build the duck. I'm going to start on that big duck house tomorrow and get them big ducks out of the chicken yard. And I'm going to leave them in that duck house for maybe 3-4 days before I let them out. And hopefully they will just go to the water. And they will stay away from trying to come back into the chicken yard. I've got 1 or 2 ducks that tend to chase the chickens around. It's like they don't want the chickens, but they've been raised in there with the chickens. So I don't know, they're just being mean. And I want to get them out. And then, oh, that's what I was saying. Somebody was selling one of those little houses. And I'm thinking, I need to get that tiny house so I can bring the 3 ducks. Because yes, I do believe I did a good thing by moving the 3 ducks. Even though they're the same age as the little chicks, they're as big as the big chicks. They're bigger than the big chicks, actually. And that worked out good for their size, but they're still doing that mess with the water. And that's a big water. That's like a 2-gallon water. And it's gone every morning. And the floor of that little house is saturated. So I'm thinking I need to get them out of there and on the ground and sit a little, you know, sit something out there real shallow so they can do their thing. And not messing the chickens up. So I don't think that person had answered me. They had put it on 2 hours prior to when I had seen it. It basically said it had only been listed for 2 hours. But I still haven't heard from them yet. So I don't know. I don't want to have to, I may have to build something. I need to get started on other things and stop building little this, little that, little this. But sometimes those little things have to be done to make life easy. And I do need to build that duck house and stop talking about it and get it done. All right, I love you guys. I'm going to go in. Let's have one more shot. Oh, you know those poor ferns aren't coming back. They're just as dead as they can be. I thought there was going to be some green. In fact, there's some green coming up in that one. But I don't believe it's fern. I think it's grass. And there's something coming up in that. And it's a little pine tree. So, they're not coming back. Home Depot had their ferns out. They weren't near as big as, well, I'm going to say as Walmart's the last few years I've had to buy ferns. The Walmart's have always been really big and a few dollars cheaper than Home Depot. But man, they were so pretty. I'm like, oh my gosh. 1, 2, wait, how do I have that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's what I told Mom 11. I told her, I said, oh, Home Depot has their ferns out. And I told her the price, and I said, I need 11 of them. She goes, you need 11? Then I wouldn't be doing, that's what she said. I wouldn't be doing ferns. And I said, Mom, I don't have to buy them all at one time. But I said, my back porch looks so bare without my ferns hanging. So, still looks pretty with all the little solar lights everywhere. And some of them are combined right now into things that they don't need to go there because, you know, I had brought them all in when the goats were out here and I didn't really set them back where they go. And it looks like this is Molly right here. There hadn't been any goats in here. This is her. Pulled this one out of the ground. And I noticed she did something the other day too. The sunflower one right there. They're so pretty. I think Kevin sent me those. I think Kevin's the one that sent those sunflower ones. She did that. They're already pulled over. She's something else. She's funny too. I had them all standing like this so the sun would hit. They were up more. And she keeps pulling them over. There. There. My light's making them go off. The camera light's making them go off. You pull it back, they come on. Yeah, she'd had them. She keeps pulling them over. But the porch still looks pretty at night with all the lights. Everything looks pretty with the little lights randomly hanging places. Y'all know the goats pulled all the ones down out of the trees. But yeah, it still looks really pretty. But I sure do miss my ferns hanging up there, so I'm going to have to get started on that project, getting some ferns back on the porch. That moon is pretty tonight. All right, these guineas are on my nerves. I don't know why. I'm so used to hearing them, and I think it's the same, well, sometimes. Because I've heard, some of y'all have said in the comments, oh my gosh, how can you stand that alarm? And I think I've had it for so long, I'm used to hearing it in the background and I tone it out. But sometimes you can't tone that out, especially when they're all doing a different sound. Anyway, I gotta get my eggs in and get in the house. I love you guys. God bless y'all. Y'all have a good week. I'll put this out tomorrow morning. So this is a Monday morning video. Y'all have a blessed week. Make it a good week.